Greetings, this is Cliff Bell, and I'm doing a podcast called The Real Estate Legacy, and I'm a real estate agent with Elizabeth Alcott and Associates in Napa. And today's video is about the importance of a real estate plan. And the overview is, what you measure, you improve. Plan is another word for guess, but hopefully it's an educated guess. At least I hope so. And then, and even I recommend start planning even before you know exactly how you're going to do it. Putting the plan together is the first step toward actually achieving results. And again, I want to talk about my plan. Just a little background is it's goes out 15 years into the future, and I actually look back. For right now, I've got it back 5 years, looking back. And then the last thing I'll talk about is a plan of the future affects decisions today. That's, I think, a very critical item. So I'll go into each one of those in details right about now. The next thing I want to talk about is what you measure, you improve, again in detail. Sometimes just getting started is all you need. And what I mean by that is sometimes we have a lot of reasons why we don't do stuff. And starting by putting the plan and measuring stuff actually starts you to put action toward what you measure. And again, you start thinking differently once you've got that plan set in place. You start thinking, okay, I got this plan, what am I going to do about it? And so it has a way of driving, and it doesn't have to be about real estate. Any plan is that way, but this one is about real estate. And again, my annual plan goes out for 15 years, so I can see where I'm going. And I track the value of the home value, actually multiple homes, and the cash flow on an annual basis. And I get that, I track the loans monthly for 5 years into the future. So those are sort of my monthly, here's what I'm doing, sort of track what I'm doing, and then I use the long-term cash flow and value. So I measure at that level, and I try to see what I can do to improve those levels. Now that I'm measuring it, I can now work to improve that, and I have actually improved it over time. In the last section, I talked about changes I made to make improvements. So again, plan is just another word for guess. And again, it's an educated guess, and the more you plan, the more educated you get, and the better you get. And it's just the beginning, but I've adjusted my plan to changes as they occur. I adjusted my timing of my next purchase later after the stock market dropped in 2022. So I knew I wasn't going to have the funds to do that, so I pushed it off. Not a good thing, but hey, it's life. I refinanced my loans to 20-year loans when the mortgage rates were down in the 3 to 3.5% for investment properties, and that completely adjusted my payoffs. So I went from 30-year loans to 20-year loans because basically I had the same payment, but I now was going to pay it off 10 years quicker. So the last thing was when I refinanced one of the properties and brought the rate down, I actually brought out $110,000 out of one of the properties, and that allowed me to buy another property. So again, I'm adjusting the plan based on opportunities and challenges that hit me, and those are just examples. Once you have the plan and you start making adjustments to that plan, you start seeing the benefits of having done that. My next one is start planning even if you don't know yet. And again, when I put my first plan together, I really had one investment property and I had the place I was living. So I didn't know exactly what I should be tracking, but I started putting stuff down, and then as over time happened, now my plan's pretty stable, but for the first 2 to 3 years, I probably was adding and changing all kinds of things because I didn't know what I should track and what made a difference. So, but it didn't stop me from starting. Start with your personal home. That's what I did. I started with just doing a budget, but I realized it also gave me the same information to put together a plan for where I wanted to go with that. And again, see how much equity you built in your house. That should be a motivation. And you say, oh, wow, this is what's happened in my home. Maybe should I do it as an investment property? And then double up on the appreciation and so forth. Instead of having to pay 2 mortgages, you have your renters pay the mortgage for the investment properties. And project out what you want to do to accomplish that. And then see how your equity would grow. So that's when I started looking at the plan, and I started looking at, okay, I bought my first investment property. So I added my home plus the investment property, and then I just projected that out. I saw fundamentally the difference between having just a home or having a home plus an investment property, and it was an exponential growth in wealth. And I sort of, I'd been doing a lot of planning financially, but never with regards to real estate. So for me, it's probably been the number one success story once I saw the results. And I read a lot of books that also said it, but when I saw that it was mine, not just something I read on a book, it became far more real. So again, I highly recommend you do a plan because it'll make it much more real for you. My plan is 15 years into the future. That allows me to see the value. Again, I've talked about this, a value into the future 15 years out. And I even have now added, I don't add too many properties into the future. I have the next one sort of planned, and I'm adjusting to that, working toward that goal. And then once I do that, I'll adjust the plan to add another one and so forth. I am relatively conservative. I assume a 4% growth in the property values and a 3% growth in rent. In the last few years, that's the growth have exceeded. But again, I'm sticking to the conservative numbers, and I'm suspecting from a value will probably be less than 4% for the next 1 or 2 years at least. So I track on an annual basis. I track the monthly cash flow that I have, and they exclude the obvious expenses of I have property managers and all of that stuff. And so it gives me a sense of what my cash flow situation is. So when I track my maintenance on an annual basis, then I can sort of see how I'm doing overall. I also track asset values, the annual property values, the annual remaining loan balance, and the annual net worth. So that way I can see both over time, the improvement in the cash flow and improvement in the value. So again, looking out 15 years, it's an incentive. For me, it's an incentive, and I suspect for everybody it would be. It's an incentive to stay focused on this because you can see the exponential growth that you get once you start adding investment properties. The other thing about a plan is it affects decisions you make now once you have a plan for the future. And I guess to me it was a way of figuring out what really mattered to me. So actually then I have the wealth, so I can actually do what I want to do outside of having a plan for real estate. It allows me to travel when I want to do, allows me to do a lot more things. So you start making decisions to fulfill the plan and also to change what your opportunities are for your life. You start saving for the next investment. You start meeting with property management people, even if you don't. I have a good relationship with both my property managers teams, and I maintain the properties for the future. I treat them as if they're my homes, and I do proactive work on them. And again, I'm constantly, one of the reasons I became a real estate agent is I'm constantly looking at properties not only for my clients, but for me. And what I do for myself and what I do for my clients allows me to even get better because it's not only just me as a business, but it's me personally. So it's really kind of a double down on that. The other thing that's kind of nice when you have that plan is I've actually, now that I've had it for about 5 years, which is how long I've been, a little longer than that, but I've had it for 5 years in various incarnations as it improved. But now I can look back and see the impact of the decisions I've made. Most of them are good. Overall, they're good, but there's been some mistakes and learning experience that I've made throughout the journey, but overall, it's worked out well. Anyway, I hope you like this video. Don't forget to give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe.